What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of the Stokastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. Sorry that I missed Saturday. My anxiety was messing up the old stomach, but I am good now. If you hear some noise, Agent Spencer is awake for the show, so he'll probably, instead of the dogs barking, Spencer will give his thoughts on the show. But it is a 5-game slate here today. Helping me to break it down, as always, Slim Cliffy. How was your weekend?
I can't complain. Habs looked like garbage on Saturday afternoon. Looked really good yesterday against Dallas. Managed to win. They're 5 points clear in the playoff race now, so building a little cushion, which is nice. But we do have to shout out a couple pretty good nights from Saturday. Frostback had some takedowns in some lower dollar stuff. He had the McKinnon, basically 5 of the 6 Colorado in the top 6. Good nights from his defenseman. The one-off Fraser Minton really sealed the deal for him. Fraser Minton, 2 goals on Saturday night. So really nice night from Frostback. You do love to see that. Congrats to him. BTFU in our Discord also dropped. Also had a really good night. Dropped this screenshot. A couple seconds in 1,000 to 5,000 man contest. First place in that $5 single entry. Won a couple tickets. First place in the $12 single entry. He had a really good night as well. So pretty good night overall in the Discord on Saturday. Fraser Minton. I mean, listen, we liked Minton and Pasternak on Saturday. I don't think anybody would have foreseen a 2-goal game coming from him, but we do take those. So congrats to Frostback and BTFU. Hopefully we can get some winners here tonight.
No such thing as coincidences. I disappear from the Discord for 3 weeks, so Frostback stops asking me questions about DFS and he starts winning. Sometimes that's just the way it goes. But congrats to you guys. The affiliates are still a little bit messed up with the new site, but we do have a promo code that does track signups and all that, and it does give you 15% off any subscription. So if you are interested in supporting us directly, you can use promo code PUCKLUCK. That'll get you 15% off any subscription. And again, the people at Stokastic will be able to track that for us. So instead of a specific link, you just sign up through the site with that promo code and they'll know it's for us. Let's get into this slate. First game of the night, the Utah Mammoth with a 2.7 total heading into Madison Square Garden. The Rangers have a 2.8. Utah going Keller, Schmaltz, Krause, Genther, Peterka, Hayton, Tarconi, McBain, Cheeks. Rangers going Zibanejad, Panarin, Cooley, Trocheck, Lafreniere, Perreault. I saw Cliffy mention it in the Discord this morning, and then I just didn't realize it until I loaded in the top stacks that the Rangers top line has the highest top 2 percentage of the night at 22.5%. They have 19.4% projected ownership. That is probably because Mika Zibanejad is coming off a hat trick and a 5-point game in the Winter Classic. Panarin also had a big game there. Vejmelka in net, he's back, I believe, but he still hasn't had a great season. You get 2 of the 3 on the top power play unit. Like we've talked a lot about Zibanejad and Panarin together. Listen, like for 18,420% projected ownership on a 5-game slate, like if they get there, they're going to need to do it through the power play. I feel like they aren't great at 5-on-5. In 80 minutes, they are controlling the play, but only creating 2.7 expected goals per 60. So, I'm fine with them. It is a little I'm a little confused that they have the highest top 2. The ownership isn't great. For that reason, I feel like I want to go to the second line here, Trocheck, Lafreniere, Perreault. They're only $13K. they have a very small sample together, but they have been good in that sample. You're saving 5,400. You're getting them at a sixth of the ownership. So I don't mind going to Rangers 2 here. On the Utah side, hold on one second.
Yeah, I'll just jump in here on the Utah side. One thing that obviously we do have to note is with Lawson Krause on the top line, that line no longer perfectly correlated on the power play. You know, both the first and second lines for Utah now have two guys on the top power play units. So, and I'll say Schmaltz, Keller, and Krause are going to get more ice time. That seems pretty reasonable. You know, Schmaltz and Keller have been skating around 20 minutes a game over the last 5 games. Nick Schmaltz, 14 points and 2.5 shots per game over his last 15 games. So he's been really, really productive. You know, 15,400 for that Utah top line, getting 20 minutes. You know, you only do get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. I don't mind them. I know Adam Fox being back kind of puts a bit of a damper on it because, you know, the Rangers top line, believe it or not, the Zibanejad, Panarin, Cooley line has actually been pretty good defensively. Only 53 shot attempts against, 2 expected goals against per 60 at 5-on-5. I don't think they're going to see much of them, though. They're going to see quite a bit of the Vincent Trocheck line. And the Vincent Trocheck line with Gabe Perreault on it, 63 shot attempts against, 3 expected goals against per 60. Those are pretty poor defensive numbers. Keller, Schmaltz, and Krause is very interesting to me. Like Krause, he had a down year last year. Before that, he was a pretty reliable 20-goal scorer. This season, he might get there. He has 9 goals in 42 games, so a little under 20-goal pace, but not that far off. He's a good forechecker, like kind of the guy that maybe Schmaltz and Keller might need here. I kind of like Utah 1, and I don't think this is necessarily a situation where I'm worried about the lack of power play correlation. The reason I say that is Utah's top power play unit, 7.2 expected goals, 6.6 actual goals per 60 at 5-on-5. That is demonstrably below average. I'm talking probably about 20% below average for a top power play unit. You know, the Rangers don't take a ton of penalties, so I'm not sure that Utah gets a pile of power plays here tonight. You know, over the last 5 weeks, the Rangers have had a top 10 penalty kill in the league. You know, over the course of the season, the Rangers penalty kill has been, you know, just outside the top 10, but between like the top 10 in the middle of the league. Like they have been above average all year and have been really good lately. Like this is not, and you face Igor Shesterkin on top of all things. Like this is not a good Utah power play, and it's not a good power play spot for them. So I'm not worried necessarily about the perfect correlation. I think Utah 1 is the line for me. I hate not playing Dylan Guenther. That guy is on an absolute tear. Last 15 games, over 3 shots per game, 17 points, 11 goals. Like that guy's just absolutely annihilating the competition. But I actually think seeing some secondary matchups is not favorable necessarily for Utah here. So for me, it's Keller, Schmaltz, Krause. You know, if you want to dip down to that third line for Utah, I think you can Carcone, McBain, and Cheeks, as we like to call them. Creating a lot of expected goals, not necessarily a lot of goals. You want a 2-man there because you're playing Minnesota power play or something. That's fine. I don't think there's necessarily a need for a super cheap filler tonight. So needs Utah 1. On the Rangers side, like with the injuries and with the lineup changes and all that, like this is not a spot where I'm going to the cheap guys. This is about the Rangers top 6. I don't really have a ton of interest in Perreault and Trocheck just because that Utah top line, I was looking at their numbers without the scoring wingers like Guenther and Peterka. 42 shot attempts and 2 expected goals against per 60. That's what Trocheck's line is going to go into. That is really cool. Now, Utah's goaltending has not been great. So that's one way that they can get at them. But Utah's penalty kill on the season has been even better than the Rangers. It's been top 6 all year, top 6 over the last 5 weeks. Like this is a very good Utah penalty kill. Rangers power play is considerably better with Adam Fox. Who knew? I'm talking double the goal rate, 50% more expected goals with Adam Fox. It's like it's not even close. But it's not necessarily a good power play spot for them either. I'm fine with Rangers 1 just going as is, even with all that ownership, just because there's so many lines in the mid price range and the lower end price range we'll talk about that are coming in 1%, 2%, 3% that you can pair with them and kind of dilute that ownership. I'm fine with Rangers 1. I think this is a game about both top lines for me. I'm going to look for my cheap lines elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, like the Rangers top line is probably my preferred, but you throw in that ownership and like you'd have to put them first into your lineup. It just does not feel great relying on a Rangers line.
I mean, hey, listen, I agree. Listen, I completely agree with that premise. However, once you get past the next game, the first lineup is going to be a Detroit, top line with no DeBrincat or Lucas Raymond or Patrick Kane, or the Ottawa top line with, Claude Giroux's there now. That guy's as old as I am. Seattle, Calgary, Minnesota going into Los Angeles. Like, listen, man, pickings are slim here tonight. It's not, we don't have a lot of bells of the ball on this slate. So I'm kind of fine playing Rangers 1. It's not like there's an abundance of high-end options on the board here.
Yeah, that's true. Anaheim Ducks with a 3 total. Heading into Washington, the Capitals have a 3.4. Ducks going Gauthier, Carlson, Killorn, McTavish, Kreider, Seneca, and then Terry, Granlund, Nesterenko. We don't really know the Washington lineup. They played yesterday. Protas was out. Wilson got hurt. What we have in the top stacks right now is a guess, which is Ovechkin, Strome, Beauvillier, Protas, McMichael, Sordif. I really don't know, and it's kind of important because the Ducks are really, really bad defensively, especially like these lines. Like, eventually they're going to go back to their old lines, but, as it stands, like, I guess, right now without really knowing the lineup, I probably do some sort of power play stack like Strome, Ovechkin, Leonard, because, more likely than not, Strome and Ovechkin are going to be playing together. Now, if it is Strome, Ovechkin, Protas, that line is 17-7, and that would give me some interest. But without knowing for sure, I would probably do some sort of power play stack. If Wilson's not in, not even sure who goes to the top power play.
They ran, it was Strome, Leonard, Ovechkin with the double defenseman.
Yeah. So it would probably just be Strome, Ovechkin, Leonard for me, unless we get something definitive, which we probably won't get until.
We're probably not going to get much confirmation on Washington until warmups. That is going to matter a lot because Wilson's already out. If Protas is out, like this line, the Washington lineup is starting to kind of run out of bodies, especially if Protas can't play for one reason or another. All of a sudden, you have Wilson, Protas, and Dubois. Remember, Dubois is still out, which would be their entire second line missing. It would really change things, and it would put a lot of pressure onto the top line, and it might need more minutes for somebody like Nick Dowd. So, we'll have to see what it looks like when Washington hits the ice. What I will say is that the Washington top line of Ovechkin, Strome, Beauvillier was really, really good early in the season, like for the first 6 weeks, maybe even 8 weeks of the season. And then things hit a downturn recently, which is why Beauvillier was moved off. You look at their last 60 minutes together, 52 shot attempts, 2.7 expected goals for. That's not very good for that line. They were getting run over defensively. Like they were giving up a ton defensively, which is why I think Beauvillier was moved off. But they're running out of options. They don't really have a lot of guys. And I will mention this is the matchup First matchup since Jacob Trouba, Ryan Leonard. So like maybe there's going to be a pile of penalties here. Honestly, with the Caps, I think it's just Ovechkin. You start your lineup with Ovechkin, Strome, add in at least one defenseman. I mean, this seems like a perfect slate for a double Washington defenseman. This is a team that uses their defenseman in the offense as much as anyone, like as much as like Carolina, as much as Montreal, as much as any of those teams that have their defensemen jump up into the play all the time. That is Washington. So you can do Chicken Carlson if you want. You can do like Chicken with one of the cheaper guy. We'll talk about defensemen at the end. This seems like a situation ripe for Ovechkin, Strome plus defenseman or plus two defensemen. So that's where I kind of am there. I honestly don't mind turning into a power play stack. Use Ovechkin, Strome plus Ryan Leonard. Leonard has been producing well in a lesser role. He's probably going to have to play a lot more minutes than he's accustomed to here tonight. You can power play stack them for relatively cheap, just because Leonard's only 4,700, Ovechkin's under 7K, Strome's under 6K. Like, it's not wildly expensive to power play stack Washington here tonight. And the Ducks have a terrible penalty kill. Bottom 8 in the league over the last 5 weeks, bottom 3 in the league over the course of the season. Anaheim's PK is very poor. They do take a fair amount of penalties, 3.2 times shorthanded per game over the last 5 weeks. That is tied for the 8th highest rate in the league over the course of the season. They're taking the 5th most penalties, per game. I don't have a lot of faith in the 3-4-2 defenseman power play of the Washington top unit, but it's one of those situations where against a penalty kill this bad, all you need, that like they can go 1 for 3 or 1 for 4 pretty easily. So I would be tempted to just run a straight Washington power play stack. We'll see if Protas is in the lineup. If Protas is in, like, he's good enough to create offense by himself on a second line with Sordif and whomever it is, whether it's McMichael or Leonard or, you know, maybe Sonny Milano moves up or something like that. I guess we'll find out at warm-up. For me, it's definitely just starting with Ovechkin and Strome plus a defenseman. I do think Washington, this is one of those situations where they're the second stack that I make. So, you know, we'll get to the teams later. Make sure maybe I make some sort of Los Angeles stack. I see how much salary I have left over. I have enough for Strome, Ovechkin, plus Chychrun. If I have that salary, I just put them in and just don't even worry about it. Those guys are going to have to play their minutes. You want to get to the Anaheim side?
Sure. Holy moly. Put them up in front of a movie. I don't really love these Anaheim lines, but it is Charlie Lindgren in that. It is not Logan Thompson. That makes a big difference. We'll have to see who the top line is for Washington, but, you know, Strome and Ovechkin generally don't have great defensive numbers together. So for me, it's probably McTavish, Seneca, Kreider. If you need like a little bit cheaper, if you're doing something a little bit more expensive, like I know Nestorenko's min price, but a 2-man of Granlund, Terry, you know, I guess is really not that much cheaper. So I'd probably go to McTavish, Kreider, Seneca. If you want to do a cheaper full line, you can add in Nestorenko. Like, he doesn't play much, but that line has been decent in a small sample. I just don't like Kaloran up on that top line, especially for over 17K. They haven't been great creating or scoring in their 73 minutes. So, you know, I wish it was, you know, going back to their old lines, Carlson, Terry, and Kreider, but, you know, it is what it is. By default, I probably just go to Seneca, Kreider, McTavish. They're fine at 15-2. I just, you know, don't really love the matchup. It's just, you know, with Lindgren and net, it makes it more of an attractive play.
Yeah, and just to finish my thoughts on the game, on the Anaheim side, this is a spot to watch for warmups. I haven't been able to find any practices from them. They haven't played since Friday. I thought they might have practiced yesterday. I haven't been able to find any lineup combinations. They were switching around their lineup combinations quite a bit on Friday when they lost, and Alex Kaloran played less than 9 minutes. I got to think that after losing 5-2 and losing 5 straight and 7 of their last 8, that we're going to see some lineup changes. Maybe it's, they've been putting Granlund on the top line at times. I mean, I guess we'll see what happens. Right now, you're getting pretty positive leverage on Anaheim 1, which would be Gauthier, Carlson, and Seneca. 17,100, 9.2% top 2 stack, 5.3% ownership. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe Terry goes back up there. Maybe Granlund goes up there. We'll see. But yeah, they haven't been able to create very well, but Carlson and Cutter Gauthier have generally been able to create fairly well this year. Like, Alex Killorn's not the player that he was like 5 or 6 years ago. I think it's understandable, kind of given where his age is. But, without Killorn, they're at 68 shot attempts and 5 goals per 60 minutes. So, like, anybody else up there, I would have quite a bit of interest in Anaheim 1. And listen, I know Anaheim is on quite a big slide of late. I think a lot of it's related to goaltending or team defense or what have you. I think it's gotten kind of underrated or undernoticed that Washington is too. Their last 15 games, they're 22nd in the league in goals against per minute. They're worse than St. Louis, Vancouver, and Toronto. That's not exactly the company that you want to keep. By expected goals against, they have the 6th worst rate in the league, worse than Chicago. So, like, this Caps team has not been very good for a month plus now, at least defensively. They're still scoring very well, which is why they're winning games. But defensively, they have not been very good. And if they're going to be out Tom Wilson tonight, which they are, and especially if Protas is missing, that is going to make things even worse. There's not much ownership coming in on Anaheim here. So whether you want to go down, I think Anaheim 2, perfectly fine. I'm kind of interested in Anaheim 1 just because there's so much positive leverage, and especially if they move somebody like Terry or Granlund or Seneca or whomever to the top line. Because if it's just about anybody except for like Ross Johnston, I have quite a bit of interest in Carlson and Gauthier here tonight. I'm not worried about any of the matchups coming back from the Washington side.
I can't wait till we get to warm-ups and fucking Ross Johnston's on the top line.
I mean, he does have what? Like, isn't it like, doesn't he have, he has a career high in goals this season, doesn't he?
I mean, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if Terry's back up there. Wouldn't surprise me if it's Granlund. Honestly, wouldn't surprise me if it was Nikita Nesterenko.
Sorry, Ross Johnston has a career high in points. He has a 5-year high in goals with 2.
Let's get to a festival in its own right. Detroit Red Wings with a 2.8 total heading into Ottawa. The Sens have a 3.1. Detroit completely doing stuff with their lines and power play units. They're going Larkin, Casper, Soderblom, DeBrincat, Kane, Kopp, Raymond, Van Riemsdyk, Comfer. Ottawa going Stützle, Zetterlund, Giroux, Pinto, Grieg, Amadio, and Kachuk, Batherson, Cousins. These Detroit lines are a circus. Their power play is a circus, which is unfortunate because it's a good power play spot. Let me just pull them up real quick to see if I remember them correctly, because I don't.
The Detroit power play is what it normally is, just Van Riemsdyk instead of Patrick Kane.
Right. Van Riemsdyk as a net front, then DeBrincat, Larkin, Raymond, and then Sider, Kane down on the second unit. So, that third line, quote unquote third line, Van Riemsdyk, Raymond, Comfort, you get 2 of the 3 on the top power play unit for 11,700, under 1%. But it's just like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to have Raymond and Van Riemsdyk in my power play stack without DeBrincat or Larkin, but I don't really want to stack against 3 lines. It's not a great 5-on-5 matchup. That's the thing, though. So, like, if I was playing Detroit here, it'd be some sort of power play stack. I guess it would be that third line since they're so cheap. I hate it, but I don't want to play Larkin, Casper, Soderblom. I just don't. I guess a one-off Dylan Larkin here is completely fine. Like, I guess DeBrincat, Kane, Kopp is fine, but you're only getting DeBrincat there. They have been good offensively at 5-on-5. I wonder which line they're going to get. I wonder who Ottawa treats as top competition. I would still think it might be Larkin.
I would think so.
Yeah, so like that DeBrincat line probably going to see Stützle, Zetterlund, and Giroux. Like, they're fine, I guess. If I had to play a 5-on-5 line, it would be DeBrincat, Kane, Kopp. I want more power play guys, and you need cheap. I think you can leave off Comfer and add in Larkin and go something like Larkin, Van Riemsdyk, Raymond. Maybe I'm just overthinking Detroit here in this spot, but it is a 5-game slate, and if I am going to play them, it would be power play guys. So that's where I'm at there. On the Ottawa side, they send out that Pinto line against top comp a fair bit. They have been pretty good this season. I just, they're still going to see that Seider pairing, which is the one thing that like kind of holds me back, especially because like Stützle, Zetterlund, Giroux are going to go out against the second line. So like Tkachuk, Batherson, Cousins fully correlated at 19-4. It's not a great power play spot just because, Detroit doesn't take a bunch of penalties. But if they're going to see bottom 6 matchups, that means they're going to be seeing second and third pairs for Detroit. And whether those new line combinations are going to be good defensively, I don't think it really matters if they're going to see a fair bit of like Albert Johansson and Jacob Bernard-Docker, you know what I mean? So for me, easily my favorite line in this game is Cousins, Batherson, Tkachuk. Now, they are the most expensive line on the night. It's a small sample. They haven't created a ton. That's kind of how it is anyway with Ottawa. Like, they just don't create a lot of expected goals just because they're not a very high danger passing team. But like Brady Tkachuk's easily their best player. It's fully correlated for whatever that's worth. 19,400 is fine, even if they are the most expensive. There are a ton of cheap lines. They have a 14.5% top two, 5.7% projected ownership. It's like, do you want to play them or you want to play the Rangers? I don't know. Like, it's a pretty miserable question on this slate, but I do like that Ottawa second line.
Yeah, this is interesting because there are 10 teams on the board here tonight, and Ottawa is the second highest total, and their power play correlated second line is coming in with under 6% ownership. I don't really mind leaving Tim Stützle off the stack. It does suck because Stützle plays 21, 22 minutes a game, including all the empty net time. So like, this guy can get there even without his wingers really doing anything. So it kind of sucks to leave him off the stack. But I was looking at Tkachuk's numbers without Stützle, 3.1 expected goals, 69 shot attempts per 60 when he's on the ice. Batherson has 9 points in his last 10 games. We know how good Cousins has been on the power play. I don't think that, like, Detroit's not taking a ton of penalties. You're right about that. 2.4 times shorthanded per game is tied for the 4th lowest rate in the league over the last 5 weeks, 5th lowest rate over the course of the entire season. But Ottawa's drawing power plays. 2nd most power plays per game over the last 5 weeks, 5th most power plays per game over the course of the season. If there is a time when Detroit's going to give up 3 or 4, possibly 5 power play opportunities, this seems like it could be one of them. Detroit's penalty kill is not very good. Now, Ottawa's is worse, and we'll get to that in a second. Detroit's penalty kill has been below average basically all season. So, like, I'm perfectly fine using a perfectly correlated Ottawa second line here and not really using Stützle. I think you can add him in, just because this is a slate with a ton of cheap options on it, right? Like we talked about Utah 3 earlier. You can probably play whatever Anaheim 3 goes with as long as if Troy Terry moves up. I'll mention the Washington 4th line because if Wilson and Protas are both out tonight, the Nick Dowd line is probably the Washington 2nd line by ice time at least. You know what I mean? So Washington 4 would be in play for a super cheap stack to play with Ottawa. Seattle and Calgary is the next game we're breaking down. I'm not sure there's a Ford in that game over 6K. I think Kadri might be, but he's 6,400. But you know what I mean. Everybody else is really cheap. So like there are a lot of cheap spots you can go to here tonight. And like I said, Ottawa has the 2nd highest total on the board, and they're perfectly correlated 2nd line. I'll call them the top line. Is coming in with under 6% projected ownership. Like that is really, really appealing to me. So, especially where they're not going to get much of the Larkin, what I assume is going to be a Larkin-Sider matchup. I'm perfectly fine with Ottawa 2 here. Add in Stützle if you want. No issue with that. They're the only line I really want to play. The 3rd line, I guess, is playable just because of ice time. Again, I'm not super excited about them because I want to get Ottawa are a power play merchant team. Not as much this season as in seasons past, but still are. So Ottawa 2, Ottawa 3 I think is playable, but it's really Ottawa 2 for me. The Detroit side is where things really start getting fun. And by fun, I mean absolutely dog shit. Dylan Larkin, 80 minutes without either Lucas Raymond or Alex DeBrincat on the ice, 44 shot attempts, 2.1 expected goals for per 60 minutes. It is absolutely terrible. Like, there's a reason why Emmett Finney played on the top line basically the entire first half of the season is because Marco Kasper has been sucking ass. Like, he has been stapled to the bottom 6 basically all year because he has not been the player that he was last year. He's been very bad. Elmer Soderblom, Soderblom's an interesting guy because once or twice a game, he'll do something just because he's so big. He'll do something that you very rarely see in the NHL. I'm not sure it makes him a good NHL player, but it makes him interesting at least. But I'm definitely not playing them. The Detroit 2nd line, I agree, is the even strength line I would play. They've been very good together. 64 shot attempts, 3.7 expected goals. I have a write-up in my newsletter coming tomorrow. We'd mentioned Alex DeBrincat, how good he's been this year. I was looking at players with the highest rate of scoring chance contributions as tracked by the website All 3 Zones per shot attempt when they're on the ice. Alex DeBrincat is like 3rd in the NHL over the last year and a half. I think the only players higher are Macklin Celebrini and Connor McDavid. So DeBrincat's really been able to elevate the offensive game of every line he's been on last year and this year. That Detroit 2nd line has been really good. I'm perfectly fine stacking them, but this is a good power play spot. Detroit league average at drawing power play opportunities over the last 5 weeks. Ottawa league average at taking penalties. So maybe Detroit only gets 3 power plays, but the Detroit power play was really good with JVR when Patrick Kane was hurt. Really good. And we know how bad the Ottawa penalty kill has been this year. I'm kind of tempted to take Patrick Kane off the 2nd line and do Cop DeBrincat, just do all the wingers, Cop with DeBrincat and then JVR and Raymond. You can do Cop DeBrincat and JVR, and it's a fairly cheap stack with 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. Whatever I do with Detroit, believe it or not, I'd probably start with Andrew Kopp at 3,400, Alex DeBrincat at 7,300, and then go from there. Whether you want to add in Larkin or not, I really worry about his ability to do anything at 5-on-5 with those kinds of line mates. I would be more tempted to add in, Kopp DeBrincat, JVR, Kopp DeBrincat, Lucas Raymond, Kopp DeBrincat, JVR, Lucas Raymond, those types of things. So I really like Detroit too. I don't think you necessarily have to play Kane. I think it's both 2nd lines for me in this game.
Agreed. Seattle Kraken, 2.6 total. Heading into Calgary, the Flames have a 3 total. This game reminds me of the Titanic, Rose not leaving enough room for Jack on the door. I wish she would just do it to this game, and it would just sink into the ocean. But here we are. Calgary going Backlund, Coronado, Coleman, Kadri, Sharangovich, Farabee, Huberdeau, Frost, Klapka. Seattle going Beniers, Eberle, Kako, Stevenson, Tolvin, and Gaudreau. Wright, McCann, Catton. There is a lot of ownership here on the Calgary side. Backlund, Coronado, Coleman, 17.8% projected. Kadri, Sharangovich, Farabee, 13% projected. Huberdeau, Frost, Klapka, 5% projected. So more than a third of the field is expected to have a Calgary player in their lineup. That's horrifying. Now, you look at the defensive numbers for these Kraken line, you kind of understand why. Beniers line in an 87-minute sample, 3.4 expected goals against per 60. The Stevenson line in a 107-minute sample, 4.7 expected goals against per 60. The Wright line in a small sample of 42 minutes, 2.5 expected goals against per 60. Now, you look at the actual goals against, that Beniers line, 1.3 actual goals against. The Stevenson line, 1.7 actual goals against. And the Wright line, 1.4 actual goals against. Joey Decord has been saving their keister when he's healthy.
And you know what? I will shout out Grubauer. He had a lot of very bad years in a row, and the guy's got a 920 save percentage this season. He hasn't played a lot of games. I think he's only played he only has 10 or 11 starts, but it's probably the best 10-game stretch he's had in 5 years.
Yeah. And Joey Decord also has a 925 save percentage, a high danger save percentage of 842. He's been excellent. That I just don't want to. I'm just looking for any reasons not to play Chalk Flames. Yeah, that Backlund, Coleman, Coronado line are going to go out against that Beniers line. But with Coronado there, they just aren't great offensively. Not that any Coleman, Backlund line are great offensively. They just haven't been great. And at 18%, I don't care if they're 11,800. I'm not going to do it. Kadri, Sharangovich, Farabee at 13.4, 13.1%. I kind of get it more because in a large sample for them, they have been very good offensively. They haven't been great defensively, but that Stevenson line has been atrocious defensively. So, I guess if I had to play Calgary, it'd be Kadri, Sharangovich, Farabee. I don't really want to do that at 13% either. And I certainly don't want to play a line with Adam Klapka on it. I guess you could do a two-man of Frost Huberdeau for 6,900 just because they're both on the power play and it's a good power play matchup. But I don't really want to do any of that on the Calgary side. So in my single entry, I'm probably fading the Flames. There are reasons to play them, but I'm looking for any reason to fade them. Kind of similar situation on the Seattle side. There isn't much ownership there. Most of their lines are coming in 3% or less. But none of these lines are creating offensively. It is a good power play matchup. So I guess if you wanted to do some kind of power play stack like Stevenson, Tolvin, and Eberle or something like that, but neither of the Seattle power play units are anything to ride home about. So when push comes to shove, I'm probably just fading this game in single entry and hope that it doesn't burn me. If it does, we have another slate tomorrow where we can hit the nuts.
Yeah. Following up Nashville, Calgary on Saturday with Seattle, Calgary on Monday. One thing I'm worried about from the Calgary side is lineup changes. We've already seen Matt Coronado get demoted. I call it demoted, playing with Blake and Coleman, where he had been on the second line. We're seeing Adam Klapka take a spot next to Frost and Huberdeau. Nazem Kadri's line was broken up in that last game and that loss to Nashville. So I do worry that, if it's 1-0 Seattle at the end of the first period, that these lines are going to get completely nuked. I will say this is a very good this is one of the best power play spots that, Calgary will ever be in. Problem is as bad as the Seattle penalty kill is, the Calgary power play is equally bad. Under 100 shot attempts per 60 for the top unit, under 7 goals per 60 for the top unit, like just all well below average offensive numbers for the Calgary power play. I think Huberdeau, Frost, and Klapka coming in with only 5% projected ownership is kind of what's interesting to me here. Just because I do think if you're playing, we'll get to Minnesota in a second. If you're playing expensive Minnesota, if you're playing, super expensive Rangers, if you're, power play stacking Ottawa, you do need cheap guys. You get Frost and Huberdeau on the top power play unit. I was looking at Huberdeau's numbers with Klapka over the last couple of years. So over 100 minutes together, 2.62 shot attempts per 60, 2.6 expected goals per 60. Like, that's above average offensively. It's not great. I wouldn't even call it good, but it is above average. And that's not nothing facing a Seattle team who is heavily relying on their goalies to keep them in games. And like you said, you get 2 out of the 3 on the penalty kill. So I think it's probably Huberdeau, Frost, and Klapka I would play. The only reason I would play them is if I need a super cheap stack because I'm power play stacking Minnesota or Ottawa or something like that. This isn't a spot where, just because I need a cheap 2-man, I'm putting in Frost and Huberdeau. Like it's one of those like break glass in case of emergency type situations than it is. I'm looking forward to playing them. On the Seattle side, I imagine Beniers and Eberle are going to get that Coleman shutdown matchup, so that takes them out of the running for me. I think there's merit to playing either of the other 2 lines, and I'll go through each one. I'll go through each individually as to why. Chandler Stevenson, Freddie Gaudreau, Eeli Tolvanen. I think I mentioned it on Saturday. I'm pretty sure Got to Get This Win has been mentioning it all the time. Like, these guys are getting a lot of ice time, like 18 to 20 minutes a game. They're not creating a whole lot. 46 shot attempts, like 2.3 goals per 60 minutes, like well below average. But at 18 to 20 minutes a game and not going out against the Coleman Backlund line, there is some upside there to playing them at 12,200, 3.4% top 2 stack, 2.8% ownership. You do get Tolvanen and Stevenson on the top power play unit. Calgary's penalty kill, not that strong this year. Certainly nowhere near as bad as Seattle, but, over the last 5 weeks, Calgary's penalty kill basically in the middle of the league. Over the course of the entire season, basically in the middle of the league. Like, it's not a bad matchup for the Seattle power play. And the Seattle top power play unit, a little bit below average for a top power play unit, but not horrific like last year. Like, they're at least at 8.2 goals per 60 minutes, which is way better than Calgary's top unit, I might add, like 30% better. So I don't mind that Stevenson line. I will give a little bit of love to Wright, Catton, and McCann here. The reason is because they're perfectly correlated on Seattle's second power play unit. And since McCann came back, they're basically running the power play 55-45 by ice time. 55 for the Stevenson, Eberle, Beniers power play, 45 for these guys. I'm not, that can lead to like 2 to 3 minutes of power play time per game for a perfectly correlated third line coming in with under 1% ownership that is not going to see any shutdown matchups and can be used with your, Ottawa or Ottawa stack or Rangers top line stack or what have you. I do think there's some merit to playing Seattle in 2 and 3. I honestly prefer playing the Seattle side than the Calgary side here. I think for me, it would go Seattle 3, Seattle 2, Calgary 2 in this game. All right, let's get to our last game here. Minnesota 2.8 total going into Los Angeles. The Kings have a 2.7 total. Looks like Darcy Kemper is going to be starting for the Kings. We don't have a confirmation on Minnesota, but they've been going back and forth on their goalies for a while now. Wallstedt started on Saturday, so I assume it's going to be Gustafsson tonight. Minnesota just hit the ice for warm-ups for pre-games. Neither of those things. For morning skate, no changes to the top 9 lines. Brock Faber wasn't on the ice. we haven't had any confirmation or update yet whether he's playing or not. We should probably get that fairly soon. But it is notable that Brock Faber's not on the ice, just because it might lead to a lot more Quinn Hughes time if Brock Faber can't play for one reason or another. So I don't know. What are you seeing here between the Kings and Wild?
I mean, it's not exactly a barn burner. It's another 5.5 on this slate. I will say, if you're looking,
they did score 8 goals on Saturday night between these two teams.
I will say, if you are looking to spend up, you can power play stack the Wild here. If I was going to 5-on-5 stack the Wild, I think it would be the second line: Boldy, Eriksson, Ek, Johansson. That being said, the Kings have been taking a bunch of penalties of late. I want Kaprizov in there, so I think Kaprizov is the most important, then Boldy. Then you can just fill in what you're comfortable with. But there are a ton of cheap lines here tonight. You can fit a Minnesota power play stack in. If you just want to straight up stack the second line, straight up stack the first line, I guess it's fine. The problem that I'm running into on the first line is they're going to see that Kopitar line and the Doughty-Anderson pairing. That's why I would go to the second line. But I think my favorite thing to do on the Minnesota side, it would be some sort of power play stack, whether it's like Eriksson, Ek, Boldy, Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Boldy, something like that. Obviously, Quinn Hughes, definitely very important to that as well, but it would be some sort of power play stack. On the Kings side, we'll see if Faber's in or not. I don't know how much that really changes. I mean, it would have to move some people out of position because that Spurgeon-Brodin pairing has been really good. It would be that top line for me: Kempe, Laferriere, Kopitar, 14,600 fully correlated. Wild's penalty kill isn't great. Not that the Kings power play is some well-oiled machine, but they are fully correlated at that price. A little bit of negative leverage. They don't create much, but Kopitar lines don't generally create much. They are scoring, which is important. So it would be Kings 1 for me. I think if you want to go down to, Fiala one-off, I think that is fine. But for me, it'd be the Kings top line, Minnesota 2. But my favorite thing in the game is doing some sort of Minnesota power play stack.
Yeah. I mentioned on Saturday, but I said that I was perfectly fine playing Minnesota 2 just because Minnesota 1 was going to run into a lot of that Anderson Doughty pairing. Now, it actually worked out because Boldy and Eriksson Ek both scored. Nobody from the top line scored. But the Yurov, Zuccarello, Kaprizov line absolutely steamrolled Doughty and Anderson. Like, they were lucky that they didn't score. So Minnesota 1 actually had a good game. And I was looking at Minnesota's numbers since Quinn Hughes came over. They've only played 6 road games since Hughes got there. But in those 6 games, Kirill Kaprizov, 55% of his ice time has been played with Quinn Hughes. And as good as Doughty and Anderson are, at a certain point, having that much offensive talent on the ice is very important. So I'm fine with either of the Minnesota lines. I probably go back to Boldy, Eriksson, Ek, and Johansson. They've been really, really good this year. The last 11 games since Quinn Hughes got there, that second line's at 83 shot attempts and 3.7 expected goals for per 60. That is nuts. 5-on-5 shot and quality generation. If you want to take off Johansson and put in Kaprizov, make it really expensive, and then go play those cheap Frost, Huberdeau, or Dowd, Frank, or Utah 3, everything else that we've mentioned for Super G. If you want to do that, I think that's perfectly fine. Minnesota only scored 1 power play goal against the Kings the other night, but they did have 4 power play opportunities. The Kings 3.6 times shorthanded per game. Over the last 5 weeks, it's the 3rd highest rate in the league. 3.4 times shorthanded per game this season. It is the 3rd highest rate in the league. This is and the penalty kill has been basically below average all season. Bottom 10 over the course of the season on goals against per minute. Bottom 6 over the last 5 weeks. This is a bad penalty kill that takes a ton of penalties. I think if you don't want to play Ottawa without Stützle, and it's just getting really expensive. I think this is a spot to go to. Is go Boldy, Eriksson, Kaprizov, make it very expensive. Go look for your cheap guys elsewhere. But I'm perfectly fine. I'm good with the idea of just playing Minnesota 2 just because they avoid the top pair for Los Angeles. I've been looking at the advanced stats of each team, working on something else. And let me tell you, when the Kings depth defensemen are on the ice, things get very bad very fast. I do like Minnesota too. On the Kings side, like I don't have a ton of interest in playing the Kings here tonight. I will say Fiala and Turcotte have been playing well together in a minimal sample. Turcotte, Kuzmenko, Fiala, 11,200, 3.9%, top two stack, 5.9% ownership. They don't take shutdown matchups, so I don't imagine they're going to go out against, Quinn Hughes and all that. Kuzmenko and Fiala both playing on the same power play unit. Again, like you said, not like it matters a lot for the Kings, but it's better to have power play correlation than not. It's probably Kings 3 for me. I am not super excited about playing Los Angeles here tonight. I think for me, I'm in on the Minnesota side.
Yeah, I just saw a quote from the coach that Faber's expected to play, or they're planning on Faber playing. Zach Bogosian's out, and they recalled David Jiricek. Let's talk about defensemen. Top of the board, we have Quinn Hughes, Jake Sanderson, Jacob Chychrun, Seider, Fox, Lacombe. I think they're all playable here tonight. Especially if you're doing Minnesota power play. Quinn Hughes obviously in play. Dude just doesn't leave the ice. Jake Sanderson's in a great spot tonight. He plays a ton as well. Chychrun, same deal, especially if there's a lot of injuries. Like Washington defensemen are heavily in play here tonight. Seider's in a good power play matchup. Fox, it's not a great power play matchup, so I probably put him a little bit further down the list. And his minutes, since coming back have been, he played 21 in the first game, 18 in the Winter Classic. It's not the normal Fox minutes. Jackson Lacombe, I think, is fine, but I much prefer, one of Hughes, Sanderson, or Chychrun.
Yeah, I wonder if Fox playing 1845 in the Winter Classic was because the Rangers were up 3-0 until the third period, and they were up 3-1 even. They didn't really need him to play 24 minutes a night, you know what I mean? But I really don't like Fox. Just because Utah has such a good penalty kill, Fox probably has to get there all at 5-on-5, even strength. I really don't like that. Chychrun and Sanderson both projected between 20 and 30% ownership. Those are the top two guys on the board by projection and by point per dollar value of the defenseman 6K and above. So I think it's Chychrun and Sanderson. What I will say is that it's a pretty good power play matchup for Detroit. I don't mind Moritz Seider, especially where Detroit's doing that screwy thing with their lines. So you're probably going to end up playing cheap James Van Riemsdyk, cheap Andrew Kopp, those types of things. That's why I think you're fine paying up for Moritz Seider here tonight if you're playing some sort of Detroit stack. In the mid-price range, Brant Clark is projecting very well for the defenseman between 4 and 6K. He has a top fantasy point per $1,000 projection. I think he's fine. Thomas Chabot is fine. I hate that they keep pairing him with Nick Jensen just because Nick Jensen is having a very, very bad season, to the point where he's dragging down the numbers of the people in front of him. Ottawa's goal scoring rate when Thomas Chabot is on the ice with any defenseman except for Nick Jensen literally doubles, more than doubles. The expected goal rate goes up by 50%. It's two completely different teams when Chabot is playing with Jensen, not very good, or without Jensen, extremely good. That's why I'm not super keen on Chabot here tonight. So I think Clark in that 4 to 5K range, 5 to 6K, Rasmus Anderson, 5,700 in a great power play spot for Calgary. And he puts up a lot of good peripherals. I like Anderson. John Carlson at 5,100. Listen, I really do think this is a good slate, good spot to play double Washington defensemen. Carlson certainly being one of them. I'll mention Vinny Dunn. 5,300, not a bad place against Calgary, but I think it's Anderson or Carlson for me. Under 4K, Matt Roy for Washington. Like, listen, Matt Roy, Rasmus Sandin, all the Washington defensemen are in play. It's just a matter of what kind of salary you need. Adam Larson for Seattle. He's projecting well. Simon Edvinsson, Ratko Gudas for Anaheim. Ian Moore has been playing more than Olin Zellweger lately for Anaheim, 18, maybe 19 minutes a game. So under 3K, he's in. And I'll mention Jan Kuznetsov from Calgary as well. He's perfectly fine. Nate Schmidt and Will Borgen, some depth defensemen from the Rangers game. What do you think for goalies here tonight?
I hate goalies every night, but, in the top range is nothing that I really want to play. I don't mind Dustin Wolf if I had to spend up, but I'm not looking to go spend up for Dustin Wolf. I think Igor Shesterkin at 7,900 is probably where I'd start. Philip Gustafson at 7,600 I think is fine. And then if I was spending down, it'd be Joey Decord.
Yeah. The top projected goalie is Philip Gustafson. I don't think that's any surprise. Going up against Los Angeles, 1.65 fantasy points per $1,000. He's easily the top value goalie, top projected goalie. He's going to carry a lot of ownership. I think it's perfectly fine though. For the expensive goalies, like Logan Thompson would be interesting. Charlie Lindgren at 8,200. Like Anaheim's had a lot of trouble scoring. Washington's defense has just really not been that good for a while now. If it was Thompson starting, I'd have interest. With Lindgren, I doubt it. So for me, the expensive goalies are Dustin Wolf or Igor Shesterkin. Igor especially is interesting against Utah just because the Utah power play is not very good. So as long as the Rangers don't fall apart at 5-on-5, which is always a big if, I think Shesterkin should be fine. For the cheap goalies, it's Gustafson or Decord for me. Again, Gustafson, 7,600. Going to come with a lot of ownership, but has a great projection. Joey Decord, any goalie, any night facing Calgary is always in play for me. You want to give me Joey Decord at 7,300, I say A-OK.
Yep. We will be back every day this week, I believe, except for Friday. So we will see you tomorrow for sure. Who you liking for your hat trick pick?
Oh, I guess I should bring us back up on the screen. Going to go a little bit off the board, but not really. He's in a high total game. I'm going with Ryan Leonard.
I'm always a big Ryan Leonard fan. Maybe I'll go with one of his college line. No, I'm not going Gabe Perreault. I'm going to go Matt Boldy.
That is a Boldy pick.
Yeah.
Literally.
Go throw myself up a flight of stairs now, but we will be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Good luck, everybody, tonight, and we'll see you in the Discord.
Good luck tonight, everyone.